So in this video, I just wanted to talk about one of my favorite series that ended a couple months ago, but it has a part 2 coming out soon. Looking forward to that. And I'm going to be talking about a manga I kind of call the Enigma of current Shonen Jump, and that is Chainsaw Man. And the reason I call it the Enigma is because when you look at all the other titles in Shonen Jump, you got your MHAs, your Black Clovers, your Jujutsu Kaisens, you got your Spy X families and whatnot. But with Chainsaw Man, the reason to me it sticks out so much compared to the other three is because of how straightforward it is in telling you what, because of how, like, you know, the blood and all that, the way they go about with certain storylines and certain aspects of the series, even the world, it's pretty dynamic. And then how the characters interact with each other, it's very different compared to everything else that you're gonna read and find. And then even some of the little scenes, like when it gets a little, I guess you would say rated R, like some of the nudity that they kind of imply in there, or some of the vulgarness that they have, as well as some of the kind of darker themes or darker tones that they have, it really stands out on its own 2 feet. And just for anyone that, you know, doesn't know about Chainsaw Man, pretty much we have Denji, our main character, who is stuck in debt because of his father, a former Yakuza member, and he's pretty much dirt poor. He's living in a rundown shack, and he's got his devil dog Pochita. And pretty much, this is the first chapter, so it's not too much of a spoiler. But long story short, he goes and follows his Yakuza members. They have him do these odd jobs like eating random stuff, and I think even one point they had him like cut his ball, like one of his balls off or something like that. Just out of pocket things. And he goes to this warehouse and whatnot. They trap him in there. They have him fight this zombie devil who was like pretty much the fear of zombies. There's an abundance of them in there, and he's kind of in this life or death situation. And then Pochita combines with him, gives him his life force, and he turns into the Chainsaw Devil. And that's where you kind of see all the poses of like him at the Chainsaw Man form, which that form is dope to me. That I've never seen a form like that look so raw and just badass at the same time. Turns into him, kills all of them, whatnot, and then pretty much the chapter ends there with Denji kind of pondering, okay, what's gonna happen next? But pretty much after that, everything is so well put out. There's a reason for everything in the story. Characters like Aki, who's one of my favorites, his story kind of being the human type character, where everybody in this pretty much job that is a devil hunter, they're stated that pretty much devil hunters are not viewed as regular people, because they're pretty much saying you have to be crazy, you have to be out of your mind in order to really survive in this line of work. And we have Himeno, a character who's close to Aki. She tells him this, she's kind of wanting Aki to not be a part of this job, even though Aki is arguably one of the best at it. And then we get other characters like Power, who is a fiend, who's kind of like a devil, but is a little different. She's more human type instead of like a devil, like Denji, who's kind of a mix between a half devil, half human. So she's like a fiend who's kind of like, she's like almost 25% devil in a way. And her character, and where she kind of is living amongst everybody who's living like the devil hunters, because devil hunters are kind of like, they kill the devils and the fiends, but the fiends, they kind of use them as part of their groups and kind of helps them take out the other devils. And also, I love Power's interactions with Denji. They're funny, crazy. They're both just goofy, just both pretty much two crazy individuals having a nice, somewhat healthy relationship. So I like their relationship in the story. But back to the fiends, and they have cool powers too. Like, for example, Power, with her blood, she could like turn her blood into like various weapons. It could be like a hammer, a scythe. I think she one time turns it into like a sword at some point, and that's pretty cool. The supporting cast is really well put for a relatively short part of the series. Like, when you think about the characters that they implement in here, I think they're pretty well executed. My favorite probably being Himeno, Kishibe, and Kobeni, because all three of them are so different, but they kind of fit the role of what they kind of fit the world of what Chainsaw Man is. It's pretty much a world of just vast personalities that are all kind of crazy. And I think the best one that really exemplifies that would be someone like Himeno, who knows the work that she's in, but she kind of uses it to like she's in this work and she like smokes a lot and she does all these other things to get her mind off of it. And Kishibe, who's kind of like he's probably the closest thing to a sensei in the whole show because he does work with Power and Denji and getting them stronger mentally and physically to go and do stronger and to go out there and do top tier missions and whatnot. So his character is pretty cool. I like what they did with him, especially towards the end. It was a nice little twist towards the end of the series that I didn't expect. And then the other character who's like probably in terms of importance, she is like the second most important, probably third. Who we have is Makima. Now when the anime comes out, I already know everybody, I mean they already are, but everybody's gonna go crazy for Makima because if Studio Map was doing it, everybody's gonna be falling for her. She does have kind of like this intriguing aura around her to where you kind of wonder what's up with her. And that's actually kind of the theme of the whole story, where we're kind of figuring out what Makima is. Like she is the quote unquote boss of the Devil Hunters, but she kind of has this aura around her where you never really know what's going on. Even if she's telling you the most straightforward thing, you don't really know what's going on in her head because her eyes just look so lifeless at the same time. So in a weird way, I kind of like her, but later on in the series, I just couldn't deal with her anymore. I hated that character so much. But and then going into the power system with the power of fear, I think that's a pretty cool dynamic to put into the series because it also does a pretty good job at building up future enemies and future antagonists going forward. Because, for example, if you have let's say you take two weapons, you have the gun and you have the bomb. The gun is actually going to be stronger than the bomb, for example, because the gun devil is feared worldwide as opposed to like a bomb, because as we all know, you can get a gun anywhere, anyhow, especially in America. So the fear of it is a lot more prominent compared to a bomb, which is something that you rarely are going to even see unless you're on like a battlefield or you're just scared of what a bomb can actually do. So that's why like something like a gun devil will be stronger than a bomb devil, and I like that because it really does add a nice little realistic touch to it as a sense of what would I actually fear more of in the world like this. And speaking of the bomb devil, definitely one of my favorite arcs. It's not the best. I think the gun devil arc is the best in my opinion, but the bomb devil arc probably has the most shock factor. Actually, no, I couldn't even say that. The bomb devil probably has the more it has this weird revelation into where it's what's going to happen, but you don't want it to, especially to Denji, because the way things are portrayed in kind of Denji's point of view, everything to him seemed so right. And it was like because going on throughout the story, Denji just took this path of he couldn't trust anybody. He couldn't he always was like, every time something good happens to me, something bad happens right away. So it was like you kind of want to see Denji win. This arc might have been like this isn't the breaking point for him, because later on he does hit that breaking point where he's kind of he's hit, like he's down bad terribly. But with this one, it was an arc of where like he was just so pissed off of everything that just happened to him to where he almost didn't even know what to feel. So that arc, I really think, amplifies Denji's character before we get into that gun devil arc, which that gun devil arc is amazing. I think that's one of the top 10 shonen arcs of the past 5 years. And then the battles in Chainsaw Man, I swear, depending on how Mappa does this, because Mappa be having a lot of projects. I don't know what time they be having for any of these, but the Chainsaw Man battle specifically, they are so raw and epic at the same time, because a lot of these fights, Denji's in pretty much a majority of these battles, and I kind of like, because Denji's Chainsaw Man form is it's like you really don't get tired of it. And these fights, like, they're so creative and they're so bloody at the same time, because when you look at, like, when you're reading the fights, it genuinely feels like a whole bunch of carnage is just happening and you don't know what's happening, but like you do know what's happening at the same time. And that's just so cool. And it happens like every time somebody's fighting, especially with Denji, because his style changes like every single fight, whether it's for the worse or the better. But when they're animated, they're going to be some of the most ridiculously gory fights you've probably ever seen in animation. My favorite is probably, other than him versus I'm not gonna say who it is, but in the Gun Devil arc, that fight is probably him and the shark devil, with him and the shark devil doing the whole Sharknado combination. That was some of the sickest things I've ever seen. It was so cool to where I was just stuck on that panel. It's like, man, like this is fire. Especially the opponent that we're going up against. Like it was funny because Denji could have had this. People thought that Denji was gonna do this idea to where it's like, okay, you know, this makes so much sense. We could do this and then we can get this win. But instead, he takes the most random idea, or the idea that makes kind of no sense, but it makes sense at the same time. He does it, still works, and it just looks dope. Like if I put the panel up there, I'm gonna put the panel up there, but it's fire. And then the art in Chainsaw Man is actually pretty good in my opinion. I think it just fits the aesthetic of it because it's not the best per se in terms of when you're comparing it to obviously something like a Berserk, a Vagabond, or even a My Hero. Who My Hero's art is actually pretty damn good for current weekly Shonen Jump. It might have the best art in my opinion, other than JJK and Dr. Stone. But this art, it just fits what the world is. It's very simple. It's nothing too eye pleasing. But at points when Fujimoto is in his bag and he wants to get to certain spreads and all that, it looks amazing. So I think the art is actually pretty good, and I think it's enjoyable. So if you want to read it or you want to wait for the anime, instead of waiting for the anime, you could just read it. If you don't like the art, I prefer you might want to just watch the anime, because pretty sure Mappa's gonna do their thing regardless of how much time they got. So yeah, that's a recommendation I'll put out for anybody. And yeah, that's pretty much my main thoughts on Chainsaw Man. I do think, since it's a part 2, I can technically say this, I do think it's in my top 3 of current Shonen Jump at the moment, with JJK, Chainsaw Man, and it's definitely one of my favorites. I have it up there with JJK in terms of current run of Shonen. I just love the series. I binged it within like almost 3 weeks. It was just so good. And it's only 90 chapters for the first part too, so you're not going into it expecting like 300 some chapters. You got 90 chapters. Honestly, you can just blow through a lot of them. Most of the looking forward to part 2. Denji's in school, and you know he's got the little girl. Don't want to spoil too much, but he's got, you know, the little girl he's trying to protect. And with the school aesthetic or school dynamic, Fujimoto's gonna be going with, I'm a little intrigued. I don't know if I'm gonna fully like it, but considering Fujimoto isn't exactly a typical, he'll take simple ideas and he'll just take them left, but in a good way. So I'm still looking forward to it at the end of the day. And there's also this thing of Fujimoto to where he has fellow artists, authors that he kind of has under his wing or as friends, like Yuji Kaku of Hell's Paradise. I love Hell's Paradise. I'm gonna have a video coming later throughout, I don't know when, going over my thoughts and some of the things I didn't like in Hell's Paradise, but I still really enjoyed. And the new one, the new author, I don't know his name, his or her name at the moment, but Dan to Dan. I have a video coming out soon with Dan to Dan, because that is, boy, I thought Chainsaw Man was like out of pocket for Shonen Jump, but this in Shonen Jump plus Dan to Dan, I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading this, I'm just like, bro, what am I reading right now? But that's for another video. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that other YouTube stuff, and I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace. So